Right now on Upfront.
Dropping out and endorsing.
I want to be very clear that there was no establishment process.
The Democratic primary race for governor heating up. David Crowley drops out and endorses Sarah Rodriguez.
He could have said nothing at all. Instead, he stepped forward.
Now, 5 candidates remain ahead of the key fundraising deadline this week, the Marquette Law School poll and our debate. This Sunday, Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore weighing in on the primary, now a month away.
Targeting fraud.
That is, in my view, borderline criminal.
The vice president in Wisconsin ahead of the midterms, and now new demands from state lawmakers after our reporting on changes coming to Wisconsin's Medicaid-funded long-term care program.
It's your money that's getting spent.
Representative Bob Wicke, co-chair of the state's audit committee, standing by.
Police funding.
Be careful what you ask for.
The police chief and sheriff from the state's largest city and county responding to all the talk in the race for governor.
And remembering Paul Farrow.
You're a public servant. You are here to serve the people that elected you.
The Waukesha County executive passing away after a long and hard-fought battle with cancer.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. 30 days until Wisconsin's primary, 16 days until our Democratic primary debate for governor, and a fundraising deadline now just 3 days away.
This past week, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley dropped out of the race and immediately endorsed Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, the second candidate to do so following Missy Hughes. The move now leaves 5 candidates in the race, 1 month ahead of the primary. Rodriguez and Crowley appearing together in Milwaukee Thursday.
County Executive, did Mandela Barnes reach out to you for your endorsement?
I was reached out by every candidate, to be honest with you. I'm not going to specifically talk about any specific candidate, but I was reached out by all of them.
How quickly did you make your decision on the lieutenant governor? In terms of having conversations with all the other campaigns?
I made my decision when I realized that I was getting out of this race. That's when I made my decision. And I want to be very clear about something. Nobody called me or anything like that to ask me to step out of this race. This race is about making sure that we can have the best candidate run in this race. So having 6 different candidates, we are now, I think, 1 week and a half into early voting. And I think it's extremely important that all of us as candidates start to make decisions about how we need to win this race and making sure that we are keeping the Democratic Party and keeping the people at the center of all of these decisions. So I want to be very clear that there was no establishment process. This is me making a decision in this race to support Sarah Rodriguez because I believe that she is the best candidate.
Would you urge other candidates to drop out at this point?
I absolutely, I never want to tell a candidate what to do, right? It's always like telling somebody whether or not they should get into a race. But I do think that all the candidates should be looking really hard as far as what do they want to see as an outcome. And for me, there's no way that I could think about who I want to be the next governor outside of myself, understanding that because I was in this race, that we weren't able to get the type of win that we needed. And so I know how to put my ego aside and make sure that I'm thinking about the people of Wisconsin, and I think every candidate, no matter what race that they're in, should always be thinking about those opportunities as they get closer to an election.
And with that, let's bring in Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore. Congresswoman, always good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Let's start right there. Just your reaction to what David Crowley said in the midst of what we're seeing in this primary.
Well, let me say, David Crowley is a much beloved county executive. I think that he's very talented. He has good managerial skills. I think that he would have been a great governor. But of course, the data showed that there was no really path for him to win. And so he decided to drop out and to endorse Sarah Rodriguez. I think that although he's endorsed Sarah Rodriguez, I think that being from Milwaukee County, that a lot of his votes will go to Mandela Barnes, despite his endorsement of Sarah Rodriguez. I think Sarah will absolutely benefit from his doing that, and based on what he has said there, is that he is encouraging other candidates to drop out as well, to coalesce around the candidate that he has chosen. So I think it's going to be a very energetic campaign. I think Francesca Hong has been organizing very vigorously, and I think she has a really solid base. So I think that it's now a very competitive three-person race.
You are a very important voice in this for Democrats over the next 4 weeks. First, want to assure you you're still not going to endorse?
Well, I was very committed to a team nominee endorsement. I think, obviously, any one of those three candidates is much better than Tom Tiffany. I mean, I know so much more about Tom Tiffany than I do any one of the top three candidates.
So in terms of an endorsement ahead of the primary?
It's not going to happen today here.
Not going to happen
Matt,
today
on your
here.
program.
All right.
You know, and, you know, I have been very committed to team nominee, and I think as I see, and a lot of people have stayed on the sidelines just to let the people speak up. But David has sort of changed that.
Is it time
calculation.
to come off the sidelines?
And so we'll see what happens. But I'm very excited about the campaign. I do have an opponent myself, and I want people to come out and vote August 11th.
You mentioned Francesca Hong, her support, her surge in some of the polls, and her support. Do you think a Democratic Socialist can win statewide?
Well, you know, I don't think that we should be bullied by the use of socialism. No matter who our nominee is, they're going to be called to socialism.
But she calls herself that.
And she called herself that. She said, I guess I'll quote Bill Clinton that I saw a couple of weeks ago, and he said, if we were in Britain, the Democratic Party would be 5 different parties. There would be Democratic Socialists. There would be people belonging to the Labor Party. There would be a progressive wing. There would be, and we're just the Democrats. And this is something that's a blessing and a curse. But it's a blessing that we're a big tent. And I think that anybody, and Francesca Hong is calling herself a Democratic Socialist, but all of the nominees believe in public education. They all believe in some kind of universal health care or access to health care. All of them believe in Social Security and standing that up and not privatizing it. They believe in the Social Services Block Grant Fund. These are aspects of our capitalist economy that are already a part of our democracy. I don't know that Francesca Hong will win a primary with some of her messaging. But I do think that we have got to buoy ourselves against, I don't think we can be we should kowtow to the notion, because they're going to call any one of those people. They would have called David Crowley a socialist.
You mentioned the 3 leading candidates on the Democratic side. Just really quickly for clarity, who are you talking about in those 3 candidates?
I'm talking about Mandela, Francesca Hong, and Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez.
So at this point, do you think any other candidate should drop out?
Well, I have not made those calls for them to do that. I do think that that August 11th, between August 11th and November, is a very short period of time, and if they don't drop out, I really want to see a huge victory breakfast where people come together.
When the vice president was here as well, former Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan was sentenced for a felony for obstructing ICE agents. Her sentence was a $5,000 fine, no jail or probation. Do you think that was the right sentence? Was that the right sentence?
I think that was the right sentence. I think that she's suffered humiliation. She's lost her job. I don't think there was any really compelling evidence that she was not acting in good faith. She was operating on the basis of that they didn't have a judicial warrant. They didn't have they had an administrative warrant. She was operating under what we knew as the law before Trump. And so I think she's a decent human being. I hope that someday, we have a governor, and we have a governor now, actually, that may this is a federal crime. We'll have a president maybe sometime who will use the pardon power appropriately. So I hope that we'll get a president who will use the pardon power to pardon her.
4 weeks until the primary. Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore. Congresswoman, like always, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Our Democratic primary debate for governor live in prime time is July 28th at 7 p.m. It will air statewide and streaming. Those specific details in the coming weeks.
Coming up, the vice president in Wisconsin touting the Trump administration's fraud crackdown. Now, new developments after our reporting on big changes to a multi-billion-dollar Medicaid-funded program here in Wisconsin.